Welcome to IAS project. In this video, let's talk about Vedic period. That is nothing but the period between 1500 BCE and 600 BCE. Before we go into the lecture, let me ask you a question. Which of the below has been registered in the UNESCO's Memory of the World Register? We have four options here: Rig Veda manuscripts, Ramayana manuscripts, Mahabharata manuscripts, and Samaveda manuscripts. If you know the answer to this question, please answer it in the comment section. Also, please write a short detail about UNESCO's Memory of World Register and what all entries are there in this register from India. I will pin the best answer in the comment section. Let's talk about the Vedic period. The Vedic period is nothing but the period between 1500 BCE and 600 BCE. And Vedic period is mostly in northern India. We generally do not associate Vedic period with southern India because during this period other things were happening in southern India. For example, Chalcolithic ages were going on initially and later megalithic cultures were going on in South India. But in the case of North India, this period is associated with Vedic period. Vedic period is nothing but the period of Aryans, and this is the period when Vedic literature was also composed. However, we do not have any written evidences from the Vedic period because the Vedas and the other Vedic literature was initially transmitted through oral route. It means that Vedas were recited, and when other people heard these Vedas, they also remembered the Vedas and then they recited it again onto the next generation. That is how the knowledge of Vedic literature got transmitted from one generation to other generation. So Vedas were not written during this period. They were written much later. So from this period, we do not have any written records. However, we have knowledge of this period because of Vedic literature that was orally transmitted from one generation to other generation. That is why we call Vedic period as a part of proto-history of India. Vedic period is not a part of prehistory and it is also not a part of history, but it is a part of proto-history of India. That is why we can say that Vedas and all the allied Vedic literature. Allied Vedic literature is nothing but Brahmanas, Aranyakas and Upanishads. So Vedas and allied Vedic literature is simply called as Vedic literature. And this Vedic literature is a transition between prehistory and history of India. I hope this point is clear. We have already talked about the definitions of proto-history, prehistory and history in our starting videos. So the Vedic literature was mostly composed in this period. However, Vedic literature survives even today. That is why we call Vedic literature as a part of living tradition of India. Because even today, Vedic literature is used in Hindu marriages and other Hindu religious ceremonies. That is why Vedic literature is a part of living tradition of India today. Moreover, Vedic literature is not only important from the point of view of religion, but it is also important from the point of view of studying the past, because Vedic literature also gives us information about historical events, society, polity, religion and philosophical thought of the Vedic period. That is why Vedic literature becomes indispensable even for students of history. Moreover, during this time, that is during 1500 BCE to 600 BCE, for the people speaking Indo-Aryan languages, there were some common cultural elements. For example, the cult of fire and use of soma drink. These two were very important for people speaking Indo-Aryan languages. Let me give you an example other than the Aryans in India. For examples, in the case of ancient Iran, we know that Zoroastrians were living there. Zoroastrians are nothing but the Parsis. And these Zoroastrians worship fire. The temples of Zoroastrians or Parsis are called as fire temples. So the cult of fire was existing in Zoroastrianism also. We know that fire is also important for Indo-Aryans because we know about Yajna. And when Yajna was performed, it was nothing but invoking the fire god. Fire god is nothing but Agni. So the cult of fire was not only important for Aryans living in India, but also the Zoroastrians that were living in Iran at that time. Moreover, the use of soma drink was also prevalent in Indo-Aryan languages. Soma is basically a plant from which a type of alcoholic drink is made. Okay, And this type of alcoholic drink was even allowed by priests also. That is why the Soma drink was very, very important in the society of Indo-Aryan people. So the Vedic period is nothing but 1500 BCE to 600 BCE. Within Vedic period, we generally make two divisions. The first division is called as Rig Vedic period because Rig Veda was the oldest Veda that was composed. We already learnt that Rig Veda was composed in Vedic Sanskrit. I also told you that Vedic Sanskrit is not the classical Sanskrit and it is also not the Sanskrit that people speak today. Vedic Sanskrit is basically old Sanskrit or an archaic Sanskrit that was existing at that time. If you want the example of classical Sanskrit, then think of Kalidasa. Kalidasa's literature was very, very famous. For example, Abhignana Shakuntalam, Malavikagnimithram, Raghuvamsham. These were written in classical Sanskrit. However, we must note that even though Rig Veda was mainly written in Vedic Sanskrit, Rig Veda also has words from Munda and Dravidian origins. So when a detailed study was made on Rig Veda, we found out that almost 300 words in Rig Veda came from Munda and Dravidian origin. What does this indicate? This indicates that there was a mix of Aryan culture with the culture of local inhabitants that were already there in India. We know about Dravidian. Dravidian is basically the South Indian. We also know the examples of Dravidian languages. For example, Tamil, Malayalam, Kannada and Telugu are the most important Dravidian languages. Now let's briefly talk about Mundas. Mundas or Munda tribe are basically located in Jharkhand. Other than Jharkhand, they are also located in Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh and West Bengal. If we talk about Jharkhand, they are densely present in Chota Nagpur Plateau region. This is very important from the point of view of art and culture as well as Indian society. Let's look at the location of Munda people on the map here. So Munda people are densely located in Jharkhand, and other than Jharkhand, they are also densely located in Odisha and also in Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh over here and in West Bengal over here. Moreover, we can also see densely populated regions of Assam as well as Arunachal Pradesh. You can also see that they are present in other states. If you look closely, they are also present in Nepal, Bhutan as well as in Bangladesh. So this is about the location of Mundas within India as well as in other neighboring countries like Nepal, Bhutan and Bangladesh. Mundas are also present in Tripura. In case of Tripura, the Mundas here are called as Mura. Munda people speak Munda group of languages, and Munda group of languages fall under Austroasiatic family of languages. Very important from the point of view of Indian culture as well as Indian society. The most important Munda language is Mundari language. If we talk more about Munda people, then Munda people have a special dance form which is called as Nupur. Nupur actually is an anklet that is worn by Mundas. Munda people also celebrate Magha festival, which is also called as Ba festival. So this is about Munda tribe. Let's go back to our Vedic period. So in case of Rig Veda, which was mainly written in Vedic Sanskrit, we also find Munda words as well as Dravidian words. We know that Aryans called themselves as Aryas, and the word Aryan is nothing but an anglicized word, which means that it is an English word. So the original word or the original name was Aryas, and this name Aryas was also used by ancient Persians, that is nothing but ancient Iranians. Moreover, the name Iran also comes from the word Arya. So although India and Iran are very, very different today, we have to appreciate that during this time, a very similar culture was existing in both these places. Today, Iran is a Shia country, whereas India is a secular country. But during this time, both in Iran as well as in northern India, Aryan culture was very, very prominent. So the Vedic literature, it was very sacred to the Aryans, but it was not sacred to the Dasas. I already told you that Dasas or Dasyus were nothing but the original inhabitants of northern India. So the terms Dasas and Dasyus were actually the terms given by the Aryans when they referred to the original inhabitants of northern India. This is also very important from Prelims point of view. So Dasyus did not consider Vedas as sacred. That is why these people did not perform sacrifices. Sacrifices were very, very important from the point of view of Vedic culture, and Vedas were also saying that sacrifices must be done. But Dasas did not do sacrifices. Moreover, Dasas also did not speak Vedic Sanskrit. They were speaking different languages compared to Aryans. Please note that during the Vedic period, Dasa or Dasyu generally meant people who were not Aryans. Okay? However, during the later time, what happened was the word Dasa also came to be used for the word slave. We already know that slaves existed during Vedic period because slaves were given as payment to the priests. So if we talk about Vedic period, we can divide the Vedic period into two parts. The first part is called as Early Vedic Period, which is also called as Rig Vedic Period. Rig Vedic period started around 1500 BCE and it lasted up to 1000 BCE. The second part of Vedic period was called as Later Vedic Period. Later Vedic period started around 1000 BCE and it lasted up to 600 BCE. If we talk about Early Vedic period, then the Early Vedic culture is often correlated to Chalcolithic culture of India. In our previous videos, we have already talked about the Chalcolithic age that was going on during this time in India. So since the Early Vedic period as well as the Chalcolithic age in India has a matching timeline, we generally associate Early Vedic period with Chalcolithic culture in India. So in Early Vedic sites, we have found Chalcolithic culture elements like black and red pottery and black slipped pottery. We know that both of these are mainly Chalcolithic culture elements of India. In the case of later Vedic age, it is correlated with painted graver culture of Iron Age in North India. We have not learnt about painted graver yet because it is mainly a part of Iron Age culture in India. So when we talk about Iron Age culture in India, we will discuss painted graver in detail. But for now, just remember that painted graver simply means that grey pots were being made and on these grey pots, paintings were also done. That is why it is called as painted graver. And this painted graver is mainly associated with Iron Age in India. Painted graver was also existing even before Iron Age, but painted graver generally is associated with Iron Age in North India. So this painted graver pottery mainly correlates to Kuru Panchala kingdoms, and both of these kingdoms were actually later Vedic kingdoms. Moreover, the painted graver sites also reveal the development of agriculture as well as pastoralism in India. Agriculture became highly developed during later Vedic period because of the invention of iron plowshare. In later Vedic period, iron tools started to be used. But in the case of early Vedic period, iron tools were not used. So since iron tools were used in later Vedic period, agriculture developed rapidly. The last point given here is that Vedic literature is a part of Shruti literature. Shruti simply means that what has been heard. So what basically happened was the gods spoke about Vedic literature to sages, and these sages composed the Vedic literature. So since the sages heard this Vedic literature from gods, that is why it is called as Shruti literature. Shruti means which has been heard. If you like this video, please subscribe. You can download this presentation from our Telegram channel. The name of the channel is IAS Project. You can find the link for this channel in the description section below. Thank you.